self-worth. Self-worth and as it ties into self-esteem as well. So Davey was an all-American athlete when he was in high school. He was really just fantastic at everything he did. And by the way, his grades were awesome. And he got into an Ivy League school. But he had one of those fathers that was just hard to please. He had a father that was hard to please. So, for instance, after one of his sports competitions, he would go up to his father and he could have won a medal in the sports competition. In fact, it was a true story where he had actually medaled in the competition, and everyone was telling him what a good job he did. His coaches were telling him what a good job he did. And he went up to his father, and his father's like, next time, what you can do better is you got to do it like this. His father's always criticizing, always correcting, always saying that his good isn't good enough. And so you can imagine how discouraging that became to Kevin over time. So Kevin became a person who was a high achiever in life. He ended up getting a really good job, but he always had a sense of fleeting self-worth and self-confidence. You see, sometimes his self-esteem would go up when he got a lot of money or did well on something, or if someone showed interest in him. But then it's like whatever was bringing his self-confidence up, the bar would just move and he would later not feel confident anymore. Now, Kevin grew up in a really nice neighborhood, went to a good school, had both parents at home. He doesn't think that he is a survivor of trauma. At least that concept is hard to understand. His mom was loving, but because his father was so difficult to please, he learned when he worked with a trauma recovery specialist that is a form of abuse for a parent to take the love and put it just out of reach, to take the approval and put it out of reach. That can cause a child to feel desperate for something that is a need. You see, for children, to get love and approval from their caregivers, that's a non-negotiable. Children need love and approval from the caregiver. So if a caregiver is a little harsh or makes it difficult for the child to get that love and approval, then that child will experience trauma. So now as an adult, he's dealing with the effects of being traumatized. Again, he grew up in what would have been considered a stable home. His father's got a great reputation, and he's got his mom at home. She was loving. He had a brother. He went to a good school. He doesn't feel like he should be considered a survivor of trauma. But what he experienced is actually a form of emotional neglect. Emotional neglect. And neglect is under the umbrella of abuse. And so if you think to yourself, whether you've had a lot of other abuses or you've had no other abuses, if you had caregivers that were difficult to please, could it be that you also are a survivor of emotional neglect? Wherever it is that our low self-worth comes from, it's something that has to be addressed in order for us to be in the untraumatized state, in order for us to heal. So some people have had negative experiences, like they were bullied, they experienced constant criticism, and that led them to feelings of inadequacy. Others have a tendency to compare themselves to others. So they're scrolling through social media, they're looking at people, and that feeds into their low self-worth and low self-esteem. They may have unrealistic standards. So if you're a person with unrealistic standards, you're always feeling like you're falling short. And it may seem like, well, yeah, this is going to help me to achieve more, to set the bar high. But what you could be doing to yourself is neglecting your own need to feel successful by setting unrealistic standards. And so that can lead to low self-worth, low self-esteem. If a person lacked support or feels like they lack support currently because they grew up in an unsupportive or neglectful environment, that can result in low self-confidence, low self-worth. If a person is a perfectionist, so if the way that you look at the projects that you have to do is as if they just have to be perfect, they got to be done to the highest standard, and you're trying to build a reputation for yourself as being perfect, you too can experience that low self-worth, that low self-esteem as a result of your perfectionism. Some people have experienced social rejection. So as a result of feeling like because of their gender, they're isolated, because of their race, they're isolated, because of their hair type, they're isolated, because of their height, they feel like the rejection and the isolation and the ostracism that they've experienced in society makes them feel like they are worth less than other people. If you struggle with body image issues, a negative body image influenced by societal beauty standards can significantly impact a person's self-worth, causing them to even go as far as to feel dysmorphic toward their body. If you feel like you have a lack of achievement, so maybe you haven't done the things that you feel you should have done by the age that you are right now, it can lead you to low self-worth, low self-esteem. But the thing to be understood about all of these things, and by the way, the main culprit is toxic, abusive relationships. The main reason we experience low self-worth, low self-esteem is because we have or had someone in our life that was toxic or abusive. But whatever the cause, it's important to understand this is a mental health issue and it needs to be addressed. We cannot go through our life with just low self-worth or low self-esteem on a constant basis thinking, that's okay, I'm just worth less than others, I'll deal with it. This is something that needs to be addressed and changed. It is an essential part of your healing journey. And that's why we're addressing it today. Let us heal our low self-worth together right now. Is it possible? Well, of course. The brain has neuroplasticity. Our perception of ourselves is just a cognition of the mind, is it not? So you have the potential of being able to view yourself differently. And so I ask you, what could you achieve if you believed that you were worthy? How would you enjoy your life if you believed that you were worthy? One of the main reasons, if we go deeper, that a person doesn't feel high self-worth is because they are basing their self-worth on something that your worth is not supposed to be based on. So if you're experiencing low self-worth, that is absolutely the case. You base worth, the value of the human, on something that it's not supposed to be based on. And there we find that commonality that we see in all mental illness is the belief in something that is not true. When we can align our beliefs with the absolute truth, then we have solidarity, actualization, and healing. I hope that makes sense. When you can align your beliefs with what is true, with what is absolutely accurate, then your thinking, your perception is not off, and you're healing the mental illness. So we have to bring your thoughts into what is aligned, what is true. So what are you basing your self-worth on? Have you been basing your self-worth on achievements, success? Have you been basing your self-worth on your popularity, social acceptance? Have you been basing your self-worth on your relationships? Have you been basing your self-worth on your children? Have you been basing your self-worth on your material possessions, how much money you have, what kind of car you drive, where you live, how you live? Have you been basing your self-worth on your appearance, your beauty, your body? Have you been basing your self-worth on your talents, natural, or your acquired skills? Have you been basing your self-worth on your degree, your master's or your PhD? Have you been basing your self-worth on your validation that you're getting from others? Well, if other people say I'm worthy, if other people are building me up, then I'll believe that I'm worthy. Social status, prestige. Do you base your self-worth on your ability to be useful to others, to be helpful, to be the good girl or the good boy? Are you basing your self-worth on your personal values, on your integrity? Maybe you made a mistake. Do you base your self-worth on your ability to hold to your religious standards? Do you base your self-worth on your role in the family as a daughter, as a son, as a mom, as a dad, as an aunt, as an uncle? Are you basing it on comparison to others? Because if you're basing it on any of those things, it needs to be healed. Because none of those things are the correct basis for our self-worth. So what are we supposed to base our self-worth on? Do you know? In the book, Mind by Zanoni, it makes a difference, a distinguishment between self-esteem and self-worth. And says that self-esteem is the term that we use to refer to the feeling that we have towards ourselves that may fluctuate from moment to moment, day to day. Such as, I just scored a basket in basketball, I feel good about myself. My wife just gave me a hug, I feel good about myself. Oh, I didn't do well on that test, I feel bad about myself. It is reasonable that we would have a somewhat fluctuating feeling towards ourselves. And that is what we refer to as self-esteem. It is okay to have a somewhat fluctuating self-esteem, as in the feeling about yourself, because as we move through, our emotions are an indication of how life around us and our perception is interacting with our values. Does that make sense? But your self-worth should never change. I'll repeat that. Your self-worth should never change. So I ask you, what is your self-worth? No, I mean literally. Answer the question. On a scale of 0 to 4, I want you to rate your worth. You can write it on a piece of paper. 0 will indicate that you have absolutely no worth or value. 4 will indicate that you have the highest worth or value that a human can have. 3, 2, 1, respectively on a scale. So what is your worth? Go ahead and write it down on a piece of paper. You can keep that private in front of you. What is your worth? A 0, a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4, having the highest value. Now, once you've got your worth written on your page, if you see anything there other than a 4, then there's still more healing that needs to take place. And I'm going to help you with that right now. So what I want you to do, if you see a number other than 4 on your page, is I want you to go into a meditation with me. So I want you to just picture yourself sitting in your home, and then someone from the United Nations shows up at your door. It's a whole crew of people. And they say, ma'am, sir, come with us. We have a special mission, a humanitarian assignment for you. And so you go with them and they take you in a helicopter and they bring you off to a distant part of the earth. And when you get there, you get out of the helicopter and you are outside of a nursery. And they take you inside to where there's babies in the nursery. And they say to you, listen, we're doing a population control cleansing type thing. You don't need to know the details. But ultimately, what we need to do is pick certain children that are not worthy of being alive, that are not worthy of not suffering. And we need you to just point them out. And we're going to take them. And whether we're experimenting or we're just going to dispose of them, that's none of your business, but we're going to handle that part. We'll do the dirty work. Your job is to determine which of these children is worth less than the other children. Go. Again, the assignment is to pick which of the babies that are laying in this nursery that are worthless. So my question to you, how would you go about determining which of these children are worth less? What did you come up with? How did you determine which of the children are worthless? Well, if you're a person of good conscience, you might have come to a conclusion like, I can't do that. I wouldn't pick. I wouldn't choose. You may even go up to the officials and say, hey, I refuse to do this job. This is not, I just can't do that. And so they say to you, well, why can't you do it? And what would you say? Why can't you determine which of these children is worth less? It's a hard question, right? Maybe you might say something like, well, because I have no basis. I have no way of knowing. They're just babies. They're innocent. They're all worthy, right? So if you'd say something like that, then they say, well, we just need you to pick the ones that are worth less than a 4. So here's a chart, 0 to 4. If you can just go through and just pick the ones that are either a 1 or a 2 or a 3. And those are the ones that we'll take off and we'll do whatever we've got to do to these babies. Just go ahead and give us any of the babies that are less than a 4. That's all we need. And again, you're looking at these babies and you're like, I can't do it, right? And so now they're getting frustrated with you. And they say, okay, fine, but can you tell me then what number you would give all these babies? Because I gave you a chart, 0 to 4, and you've got to assign them a worth. What worth would you give to all the babies in this nursery? Likely you would say, if I had to give a worth to all the babies, it would be a 4. Right? And I see your comments coming in, 4, 4, right? So you're saying that all of these babies are of the highest value. So follow me. They say, fine, let's go. And they take you away from the nursery and they take you to a school where you have 6 and 7-year-olds. And they say, I understand the babies were a little too young for you to judge, but all you got to do is the same assignment. I just need you to pick from these 6 and 7-year-old children on this playground here. Just point out to us which ones are the worthless children. And then we'll take them off and do whatever we're going to do with them. How would you choose which of the 6 and 7-year-olds are worthless? Perhaps you've come to the same conclusion about the 6 and 7-year-olds. You can't just choose 6 and 7-year-olds to throw away. And so they say to you, well, on a scale of 0 to 4, what worth are you giving these children? And perhaps you would come to the same conclusion. All of them are worthy of a 4. And they say, okay, we understand what the problem is here. Let's take them back up in the helicopter. And so they take you in the helicopter, and now they bring you to a high school. They say, hey, look, we understand it was tough with the children. But here in this high school, we have kids between the ages 14 to 17 years old. And these kids, some of them have tried drugs. Some of them are not virgins anymore. Some of them are not getting good grades. Some don't really have like great parents. They're probably not going to succeed that much. So we'll give you all the background on these kids, but can you just determine for us which ones are going to be worthless? In fact, which ones are the worthless kids? And then we'll take care of the extermination of these kids. Just go ahead and tell us which of these kids are worthless. Now, remember, you're dealing with teenagers now. So how would you determine which teenagers are unworthy? Which of the teenagers are not as worthy as their peers? Still not comfortable? So they give you the clipboard and they say, well, just can you give them a worth on a scale of 0 to 4, and 4 being the highest value? What value are you giving everyone? And you may struggle a little based on your background. You may wonder, well, maybe some of these kids aren't going to do well. Or maybe some of these kids aren't doing well right now. But at the end of the day, you may not feel comfortable actually judging. And so you give them all a 4. And they ask you why. And you say, because they're people, and I don't know. I can't be the one to determine their worth, their value. You may say all of them have potential still. They're still young. And so they say, okay. And they take you back in the helicopter. And now I want you to picture that they bring you to an office building. And in the office building, you have adults between the ages of 25 to 55. And they say to you, now, we just need you to point out which of these adult humans are worthless. And then we'll go ahead and take them out back and do what we do. How would you determine what adults are totally worthless, having no value? How would you determine which adults are just worth less than the other adults? And again, you find yourself unwilling to make a distinguishment between who is what. And so they say, so on a scale of 0 to 4, what value are you assigning these humans? And you say, you know what? Everybody gets a 4. Take me home. Might you say something like that? Everybody gets a 4, and they say, no, explain. Why? We've taken you to a nursery, we've taken you to a school, a high school, and now we're here with these adults. Why are you giving every human on earth a 4? You say, well, because I believe that all people have value. And we can't just determine based on frivolous circumstances what someone's worth is and if someone's worthy or not. And so they take you home. And if you answered along the same lines that I answered, well, then you did really good. But it's not about passing this test, it's about learning from it. Because you came to a conclusion during this exercise. And your conclusion, each time when pressed, is that you could not assign any humans total worthlessness. Because you believe that all humans have value, have worth. And what is the value of all humans on a scale of 0 to 4? What is the human value on a scale of 0 to 4? What is the human value on a scale of 0 to 4? It's a 4. Every time, across groups of people, their worth was a 4. Where did they get that worth from? Where did they get that value from? It's intrinsic. What that means is that they were born with it. Remember in the nursery, before the babies had done anything, they had accomplished nothing, you gave them a 4. So where did they get the 4? They were born with it. Now I have a question for you. Were you born as a human baby? Well, were you? Because if you were, then your worth on a scale of 0 to 4 was a 4. And it was still a 4. When you were 6 years old, 7 years old, it was still a 4. When you were 16 years old, 17 years old, and it was still a 4. When you were 25, when you were 35, and it will be a 4 until the moment you expire in death, because your worth is intrinsic. You were born with it. It cannot be separated from you. It is God-given from your very inception as a human. You came into this world with a 4 in worth, in value. That is your value. You are of the highest value. Why? Why? Because you're a human. And every human is a 4. And you know that. Well, you know that when you're talking about other people. But when you talk about yourself, then you kind of come up with different rules for the game, right? You go, well, yeah, but not me, but I just don't feel like a 4. Okay. So what does that mean? I'll give you a hint. Nothing. Because we're not talking about feelings. We're talking about your number. It's a mathematical equation. What is your worth? What is your value? It's not about what you feel your value is. It's about what your value actually is. So let's create solidarity here. What do you prioritize? The feelings or the facts? Because the facts are that your worth is a what? It is a 4. So if you don't feel like a 4, when you are a 4, then your feelings don't match reality. So that means your thinking is distorted. So then you have to ask yourself, why do I feel something that's not true? If you've been going through life with a 2.5 on your page or a 3, thinking maybe that was the modest choice, you have been living in disreality. You've been living in a false dystopian fantasy that you have created, or you've been gaslit to believe. You're not a 2.5. You're a human. You are a human being. You are valuable. You were born valuable. You will always be valuable. You have unlimited potential. You were born with that worth. The worth doesn't disappear for any frivolous reason. So why? Go deep. Ask yourself, why do I feel like I am less than other humans, when in reality, I am just a human like everyone else? Why do I feel like I am less than human? Go deep, answer the question, write it down. Why do I feel different than reality? And what did you come up with? Well, if you wrote something down like, because I haven't achieved as much, or I'm not as successful as I like to be, go back in the illustration and remember when you're in the room with the babies, what have they achieved? 0. Well, what's their worth? 4 out of 4. Achievements don't matter. Achievements don't matter as to your worth. Achievements do not weigh into your worth, because when you go out and you achieve the highest level of success and you become a multimillionaire, you are still a 4. And if you try to become a millionaire and you lose all of your money and your parents' money, you're still a 4. So it doesn't matter how successful or how much of a failure You would be considered by societal or monetary standards. Your 4 is still a 4. You're a 4 when you wake up. You're a 4 when you go to bed. You're always a 4. It's never, never, never going to change. So why? Why would you feel different than reality? Accept the truth. Or maybe you would say, well, I don't feel like a 4 because I don't get the social acceptance, or I'm not popular, or my relationships have issues. Okay, go back to the illustration. If the people would have told you, okay, we're going to show you who's not popular in this school, would you have been able to pick out some children and be killed? No. Why? Because popularity, social acceptance, and status has nothing to do with your worth. Your worth is a 4. 4 out of 4. It's going to stay a 4 every single day of the week, no matter who likes you, who doesn't like you. Right? So maybe say, well, it's because I don't have any talent, or I don't have any skills. Okay. So go back to the illustration. If they said, oh, some of these people in this high school don't have talents and skills. So can you just go ahead and point out which of the ones don't have talents and skills, and then we'll go ahead and go torture and kill those individuals? Would you be happy to do that? Can you assign a 2 to humans that don't have talents or skills? No. So stop doing it to yourself. You're a human being. You were born a 4. You will always be a 4, whether you get a talent or not. You could have an amazing skill and you're only going to be a 4. It's not going to get higher and it can never get lower. It stays the same. Maybe say, well, for me, it's the negative experiences I had in my life. I've had a lot of negative experiences, a lot of bad things I've seen, a lot of bad things that have happened to me. Okay. Let's go back to the illustration. When they show you the schools with the children, or the teenagers, or the adults, and they say to you, we'll point out the ones that have had negative experiences. Can you please rate the ones with negative experiences as a 1 in value? Would you be able to do that? Could you give them a 0 for having negative experiences? No. You would still give them 4, because their worth is inherent. It is intrinsic. It is sewn into the cells. And so because they are alive, they're a living, breathing human, their worth is a 4. You get the idea? So take whatever is on your page and go back and ask yourself, would you be willing to assign other people a lower value for the same reason that you're giving yourself the low value? And if the answer is no, I would not give other people a low value based on this, then stop doing it to yourself, because you are a people. You are a people. You're a person. You're a human being. You count. You might not like it. It may be very inconvenient to you. And there may be some cognitive dissonance because you've been treated inhumanly. But nevertheless, you're still a person. I can't change that. You're a person. You're a person. So as long as you're here, as long as you're alive, you have worth. You have value. So accept that. Just take a moment. Just close your eyes. And just accept the intrinsic worth that you have that can never be separated from you. Feel the power that surges in every single vein and every muscle and every cell of your body. Your potential is unlimited, and it stays that way until you expire. Welcome to reality.